All right, we're back. Sorry, guys. Something happened to the goddamn thing over here. I don't know what happened, man. My apologies, okay? I just dropped everything on the floor. Let's go. Continue, man. Continue. Continue. Yep. All right. There you go.
I got a text from my mom. And he did. He showed him his phone. Made it safely. This is from Chandler Halderson to Chaz. That's what his family calls him. Not Chandler. They call him Chaz.
Yeah.
Made it safely. Can't get anything through, though. Yes, it's packed. Going to White Lake today for the parade. We'll be home Monday night, Tuesday early. I love you lots. So at this point, the sheriff's deputies don't know what they're dealing with. These folks get up there and decide, now we're going to go to the casino for a few days. We're going to play hooky. Didn't make a lot of sense. They started talking to coworkers and realized these people had never no-called, no-showed, missed work, which they both did on Friday. Did they crash their car? Did this other couple kidnap them? Where the hell are they?
Yeah.
But what good police do, and what they did in this case, is they start looking into the people who saw them last, who were with them last, who reported them missing. And in this case, all three of those things, the person who purportedly saw them last, was with them last.
The douchebag.
And reported them missing were the same person.
The douchebag.
It was Chandler Halderson.
That's right.
So what the police did, started to look into Chandler Halderson.
I don't know what happened. I got disconnected for a minute. My apologies. But I want you to pay attention to the prosecutor. He's going to give you the whole story, how it started. Then we're going to go to the police interview of Chandler when the police already know what he did, but they just playing this dumb game with him. But I want you to listen so you get an idea how cruel this motherfucker is. He's a cruel piece of shit, man. This Wisconsin, they got to stop eating cheese, man. That cheese is fucking them up,
This is all occurring in the same 24-hour, 48-hour period.
Yep.
And what they learn about him isn't suspicious at all. He's a Madison College student, MATC. They go by Madison College now, if you didn't get the email. Madison College student. He's about to graduate.
Never been in school.
He's studying renewable resource engineering, kind of a hybrid IT degree, solar panels, things of that sort. He's about to get a certificate.
Yeah.
But things had looked bright for him.
Yep.
He'd recently been working at American Family Insurance. He's working from home like most of us the last couple of years. But he's working a good job at American Family Insurance. And not only was he working a good job, Chandler had just gotten a better job. He got hired at SpaceX. He was about to embark on a career that people in the IT field could only dream of. He's planning to move to Titusville, Florida. That's where SpaceX operation is, down in Florida.
He's going to work for Elon Musk. Elon Musk.
They'd rented an apartment. They'd bought a car. And not only was this not someone who was antisocial, he was pro-social. Yep. He was working with the Madison Police and the Department of Natural Resources on their rescue diving team.
All made up. All this shit is made up.
Working with the police.
All lies.
The only thing that was a bit odd is he'd recently suffered a head injury.
And that's made up.
Fallen down the stairs. Had terrible concussion.
Yep.
Was unable to move for the most part.
All made up.
Had to wear a neck brace. He was permanently, perhaps injured. All of those things through police.
See, the problem with this guy, he just kept on lying. He make every lie, he'll make a bigger lie and a bigger lie. And you have to show out. I mean, you could lie, what do you call white lies? You could tell a lie and stuff like that. But he makes up so much crazy shit that he has to show it. And he doesn't just stop with the first big lie. He'll keep on going. I mean, he'll make it bigger. Instead of, he stayed home one whole year pretending to work for an insurance company that he never did. Just lying to his father and mother so you don't have to pay them rent. He stayed a whole year, said he's going to IT school online because during the COVID-19, he never did, and he used to make up this. You're going to see the whole story. And to top that on, he said, I got a job at Rocket X with Elon Musk. Water. You understand? So let's go.
Off from thinking it was Chandler. He had anything to do with this. And at that point, for all they knew,
beautiful, ain't I?
As sad as it is, Bart and Krista and an unknown couple were crashed into a ditch somewhere between here and White Lake, Wisconsin, dead from a car crash.
Thank you.
So they started looking.
All right.
Deputies are sent up north.
Yep.
The Langlade County Sheriff's Department is searching a cabin. No one had ever been there. It didn't look like anyone had been there at all in years. It was run down. The grass hadn't been mowed. There was no food in the refrigerator. No one had been there. So the police expand their search, and they start talking to not only just Chandler, people about Chandler. They start talking to people who were with Chandler that weekend. And Kat says, I was with him like all weekend. We had a normal 4th of July weekend. We went out.
Everything was normal.
My family's farm. We got a farm. There was a pool. We ate dinner.
Yep.
Chandler was having the concussion issue, and he couldn't really move his legs, and so he asked to use their pool the next day because he thought that was good therapy. So the police, what do they do next? They go talk to the person who owns the farm.
Yep.
And they say, was Chandler out here? And she goes, yeah, he was out here on the 4th of July. But you know what? He showed up the next day by himself. He showed up the next day by himself. I told him he could come back anytime, as we just say to people, not expecting they're going to roll into your house the next day.
Yeah.
She says he was acting bizarre. Said that he had a doctor's appointment and they'd given him some bad news that he was going to lose his job at SpaceX because he couldn't travel. He couldn't attend orientation to start.
So when he lied about that he got a job at SpaceX, he pretended to fall down the stairs and that he hurt his neck and that it was so bad that he started, he had a concussion, he could not travel, and because of that he ended up losing the job that he never had. Everything is a lie. But the problem you're gonna see in the prosecutor's statement, his father was getting to him because he's been lying to his father the whole year. His father's an educated man. He works for OBS, I think, not OBS, it's OBD, that big accounting firm. And they go, "What do you need?" OBD. You see those commercials on TV. This is the problem.
And she goes, he asked to use the pool. And of course I said yes. This woman will testify, and she'll tell you that she sat in her house for a while, perhaps a bit weirded out that someone had just shown up at her rural farm. Yep. But she let him have his space.
Yep.
But about an hour later, she goes down to the pool to check on him. He's not there.
He's not there.
No one had opened the pool. No one had been in the pool. But she sees his car. It's parked out in the field, away from the pool, backed in toward where that grass is a bit longer, and had its hatch up. She thought, boy, that was strange. But she thought maybe he's just on a walk. So she goes in the pool. She said, I'm just going to go in the pool. If you remember that weekend, it's extraordinarily hot. She starts swimming. She says, then I see Chandler. He's walking out of the woods in that area. Now, at this point in the investigation, the police are out there with this woman. They're out on the farm. And she says he walked out over there. And you'll hear from the Detective Brett Baverstock, who was out there. And he'll tell you that his eyes kind of shifted up and he saw vultures.
So not only is he a dumb liar, he's a dumb fucking criminal. Imagine killing your parents and cut them to pieces, some of them, and throwing the body parts right next to your girlfriend's, where your girlfriends live, right behind the pool. This motherfucker is the dumbest piece of shit. It's the cheese. It's the cheese in Wisconsin. It has to be the cheese.
And I promise the photos are only going to go this far for right now. But the police walked about 20 yards into the woods. And in that pile of debris, under dozens of sticks, bushes, and dirt, they found Bart Halderson. Now, when I say they found Bart Halderson, I need to explain that. They found a human torso. Someone had crudely chopped off the head, the arms, and sawed off the legs in the middle of the thigh, leaving the underwear on in the beginnings of the pants.
Although he don't want to see his father's dick, huh?
They removed the sticks and brush over a course of a few hours. They brought out doctors from the medical examiner's office to make sure everything was done appropriately. They rolled the torso over. There were gunshots in the back. This man had been shot in the back and chopped up. At this point, the farm, a beautiful farm, cultivated for years with wildflowers, kind of an Eden of sorts. was turned into a crime scene. Police swarmed the place. Drones were in the air. Cadavers, dogs were on the ground. Everyone's looking through absolutely everything they could, but it's a farm. There's a million places things could be. But one detective said, look at that in the woods. Is that a garbage can full of a tarp? It was. And I'll tell you, that tarp was taken to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab eventually. Bart Halderson, Krista Halderson, their blood is all over it.
I like it.
Another detective said, that spot where Chandler was walking out of the woods,
Yep.
there's an oil barrel there, like an old fuel tank with a hole in it. That's right where the car was parked. So she peeks her head in. And that's what she sees. Broken saw blades, hand saws, scissors, tree loppers, all of them tested by the state crime lab, all of them covered.
You see what he did to his parents, that piece of shit? How the fuck can you do that to your father or your mother, man? And he left all the evidence right there next to his girlfriend's home. As if nobody's going to find out, it's going to go away, he's going to lie. Well, everybody's going to believe the story. His parents went away with some people that he didn't know, or family that he didn't know. All of a sudden, this guy's a piece of shit, man. How the hell can you kill your parents? Look at all these fucking stuff he used. How evil can you be? How evil can you be, man? How evil, man? I can't even kill a fucking rat in the house. If I catch a mouse still alive on the glue, I just throw him right out the window, let him freeze to death. Is that more evil? I don't want to kill that guy.
Human flesh and blood of Bart and Krista Halderson.
Oh, no.
The farm was searched extensively, and I'll tell you that some months later, things were even continuing to be found. Up to this fall, in October, the homeowner, the person who owns the farm, was tearing apart a barn, trying to clean it. And there in a barn about 100 yards from where Bart Halderson was found, the murder weapon, behind a bunch of boards on the side of the barn. At this point in the investigation, the police knew they needed to start talking to Chandler. He's seen coming out of the location where his dad's body was, just brutally chopped apart. The tools, the cutting.
That's the fucking, what's that, an AR-15? He shot him with an AR-15 inside the house, in the basement. He lured him to the basement. He said, Dad, I want to show you something here. Can you see what that is over there? As soon as he felt the turn around, boom, 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 right in the back. Then after he killed them, you're going to see what he tells his mother. This kind of evil, you got to send them overseas to our country, to my native country. They'll take care of him right away. He will not eat, or you not have to spend money for him, like 20, 30 years in jail. They just send him over there, import him over to Arabia, and they take care of them, especially a person who killed their fathers and their parents. The biggest no-no is to kill your family. You don't got to kill anybody, but this has to be the
instruments
evil,
are found there.
That'd be the cheese in Wisconsin.
So they do what police do. They bring him downtown. But they ask him, and he's at the house, and they ask him and his girlfriend to come downtown with them. And they do. And that girlfriend, Kat, is in one room, and Chandler is in another.
Beautiful girl.
Chandler, and you'll see this, we'll play it, for over an hour, meets with police, and again, regurgitates this odd story of his parents with this missing couple in a random car, going places that no one really knew. Or Kat, in the other room, she's vomiting information to the police. Literally vomiting at times. Yeah. But also vomiting information in terms of she has her phone out. She's giving them pictures. She's providing every single detail she can because she'll tell.
She's innocent. She thinks that her and her boyfriend are there just to clear up. She saw these shows like me on Dateline. So they usually start with the family. They gotta clear up the husband, the wife, whatever, the boyfriend. After they clear them up, then they go outside. They go within a small circle. Then they go out like an umbrella. When an umbrella opens up, that's how they investigate the murder. But usually 90 to 80% of people who are killed either by family or business partners or people they know over money, insurance, life insurance, especially white people. Forgive me for that. White people, I watch a lot of shows. They always kill their wives or husband for money, like for insurance, for life insurance, or for equity, or they want to get a divorce, but they don't want to share the home because poor people don't have that. So the only time poor people kill each other is for lack of money. They fight over $20 bill. They're broke and shit. They, they're not gonna fight over or kill each other over somebody else's property or apartment. Well, this apartment looks good. It got a good deal on it. I gotta kill my wife.
Tell you when she testifies. She's one of these people that watches these crime shows. And she knows when someone's missing, you got to exclude the people closest to him first. And she thought.
The reason I'm doing this is because I watch a lot of this crazy shit. I'm so addicted, it's unbelievable. I'm afraid if something happens, somebody that I love, the police will say, well, he's been watching a lot of crime shows, so he probably got those ideas. No, full disclosure, I don't know how to do that.
That's what we got to do. Chandler didn't have anything to do with this. I didn't have anything to do with this. We got to get to the people who did. And the first step is we got to exclude us. She didn't for a second think that Mr. Halderson had done anything wrong. She thought she was with him most of the weekend. And I'll tell you right now, Kat did nothing wrong.
Do nothing wrong, yep.
Kat was an unknowing, unwilling accomplice to some of this.
True.
But she did absolutely nothing wrong.
True.
And she'll tell you, she liked Mr. and Mrs. Halderson. There were the normal disputes you'd have with your boyfriend or girlfriend's parents. Maybe you want to go out a lot and they don't let you. Maybe you want to hang out more than they don't want to. But she liked him. Her phone is full of messages between her and Mrs. Halderson. Friendly in all respects.
Yeah.
Kat meets with police not just once, but multiple times. And in one of these meetings, she says, you know what was weird? Is this weekend, when I was with Chandler, while his parents were at the cabin, I left the house early one day, on Saturday, in fact, Saturday, July 3rd. And she says, he told me he was going to do chores that morning around the house.
Yeah.
But when I looked at my Snapchat,
Yeah.
I saw his location was in a weird spot.
Tell you.
If you don't know, on Snapchat, you can set it up so that other people can see exactly where you are. A GPS tracker on you at all times, if you will. Chandler had that set up with his girlfriend. And she goes, it was so weird where he was. I took a screenshot of it on my phone.
Right.
And that's what it showed. Chandler was saved as hubby in her phone. That's perhaps a term of endearment between two folks dating in their 20s.
Oh, I don't know much about Shot Snap, but usually if you want to know where your lover is or your boyfriend is, it tells you exactly where he is. Instead of cleaning the house, he was actually getting rid of the body of his mother right now inside the woods. Yeah, the dumbest. Dumb.
But she said, at 8:58 in the morning, when he was supposed to be doing chores on Saturday, July 3rd, I thought it was strange that he was in what appears to be a forest on the banks of the Wisconsin River near Prairie du Sac. The police took that. They identified immediately where that location was, just based on looking at it. That's a bridge. Couldn't be hard. Out they go. The drones go up, the dogs go out, the search team starts searching. Very quickly, and I promise this is as far as the photos will go, they find the remains of Krista Halderson. Now, when I say Krista Halderson, I have to qualify that as well.
That's it.
We found her legs.
That's it.
One complete leg, then somewhat farther away in another bush, a foot, a thigh, but the same pattern. Crudely cut apart, what appears to be handsaws, axes, things of that sort. No more of Krista Halderson that's identifiable to her will ever be found. She's just those two legs. At this point, the police thought, this is just a strange location. Why would Chandler be out there? He'd been out there before. And they started talking to people, including girlfriends of his in the past, friends of his. And they say, yeah, Chandler really liked this location out on the Wisconsin River. He'd go there all the time. It's where he'd go swimming. When his friends came into town, that was the secret swimming spot. And one friend even said, you know what? Last year, he sent me a picture while he was out there. Kind of shirtless, hanging from a tree with a machete. I don't know. Didn't have a lot of significance at the time when the police saw it, but eventually someone realized the tree looks unique. Interesting.
That's a fucking year before, and he still had a machete on his ass, that piece of shit. That's why he threw his mother's hands.
V pattern right there. The hollowness of the tree as it goes down. The way in which 5 of those branches branch off. And eventually one of the detectives realizes why. Something clicked. It was the exact location he ditched his mother's remains.
Wow. Same spot. A year ago, he was there. What a piece of shit.
That's about
People
100 feet away. So obviously, it shouldn't come to anyone's surprise, at some point Chandler was arrested.
Thank God, the good part is gonna come when they do the interview with him, and you see how he lies and lies. And we're gonna go over that with the.
In fact, he was arrested on July 8th, 2021.
After
when you're arrested for a lot of crimes, you go to jail, you get booked in, and not much more happens investigation-wise after that. They have what they need. But of course, that's not the case in a murder investigation, especially something like this. So Chandler is taken to jail, and the police start searching. When I say searching, you're going to hear about searches of the house, searches of this farm, searches of this property. You're going to hear about searches of landfills and ponds and ditches all across Dane County. But one of the things they started searching was, what was this guy doing on his phone that weekend?
Yeah.
And oddly enough, most of what they found was nothing. Either Chandler hadn't Googled anything all weekend, except for the 8th, or he had deleted his search history. You'll never know. Yeah. But remember, he was arrested on July 8th, taken to the police station, and that's where they told him, hey man, we know what's going on. So meaning, while he was still on his phone on July 8th, he was still telling everyone his parents were missing. Not just the police. This kid was standing in his front lawn giving media interviews to all the local media outlets about the cabin and the unknown couple and the unknown car.
Good shit up.
He was going door to door in his neighborhood. My parents are missing. Can you help me out? Do you have any security cameras, by the way? And you'll hear from these neighbors.
He was going door to door to make sure if they had cameras toward his house, so the police can't prove that the parents never left the house. The whole idea, this asshole, his whole family have their own cameras. So I don't know why he was going to the neighbors. He had issue with his cameras. The parents never left the house. They left in parts, in pieces.
Neighbors. Some of them were so weirded out by what was going on that they secretly recorded those conversations.
Yeah.
One of them, you'll hear, was a man who'd only been retired as a detective with the City of Madison Police for about a month. He recorded his conversation with Mr. Halderson. But while he's doing this that morning, what's he Googling?
Body found.
This is what he's Googling. Body found, Wisconsin. Woman's body found, Wisconsin. Wisconsin dismembered body found.
Oh, shit.
We'll come back to the next two. Dead body found in Wisconsin.
Nope, not yet.
Body found in Milwaukee River.
Wow.
He's searching for whether they found his parents. And you'll hear in this case, he's starting to search because he's starting to get worried because the amount of police in his neighborhood has been ramping up and up and up because unbeknownst to him, they're finding his parents' remains.
Right.
And you'll hear that while this is going on, while he's Googling these things, he's frantically calling police officers. Hey, why are there more cops?
So the whole idea is they really discover some of the parts. They're discovering hands there, legs there. So the more they discover body parts, the more they surrender the house where he's at. And he's nervous. Like, why is there more police in my neighborhood than they're looking for my mother and father? But they already know he did it. So they don't want to tell him.
Cops in my neighborhood. Calls this guy, Brian Shunk. He records him. What's going on? Yeah. There's more cops. Did something happen? Did you find something? The middle ones. State versus Peter Capuzzo. Probably means nothing to everyone. It meant nothing to me when I first saw it. The name rung a bell, and I wondered why. Not only does it show he Googled State versus Peter Capuzzo, it showed that he clicked on a link on the Wisconsin court's website and read something. What he read was a legal case, much like this one, it's the state versus Chandler Halderson. The state versus Peter Capuzza, though, was a case that made it to the Court of Appeals based on some legal technicalities about a man who dismembered part of his family members.
Okay, is this a thing in fucking Wisconsin? Everybody just kill their family and dismember the bodies? What is going on in Wisconsin, man? Yo, Aaron Rodgers, you better leave the fucking Packers before they cut you up there, because you're not doing so good this year.
And threw their bodies in the river. So at the same time, Chandler Halderson is going door to door in his neighborhood, crying about his parents being missing, talking to the local news, telling sheriff's deputies, signing documents saying they're missing. He's conducting legal research to get himself out of today.
Yeah, I ain't going no place.
So that today never happens.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, when I started with that calendar a while ago, and I said the police were initially thrown off because of one thing, and that was this text message from Krista. And it's real. I'll tell you, that text message is in all the search warrant returns from U.S. Cellular. It's on the phone that we were able to search. We're not able to search every phone, but some of them are. Made it safely. Can't get anything through, though. Yes, it's packed. Going to White Lake today for the parade. Be home Monday night, Tuesday. Love you lots. Sent on the 4th of July. So the police started looking into that. And the first thing they found was White Lake. The parade was on July 3rd.
See, he did a fake text message from his mother that they were at the parade, it was crowded and people. But the problem is the parade wasn't held on the 4th of July because it was on a Sunday, and they celebrated it, excuse me, on a Saturday instead of. So they had the parade on the 3rd instead of on the 4th. That's the first lie. So this guy, I mean, it's easy to think about the committing crimes. You know, when you watch those true crime shows, you watch all these people do these crimes and shit. They don't think about the aftermath. You can't lie. The police will get you every time because the police already saw so much killing. They already know the question to ask and how to ask them. That's why after they find a body or something, the first thing they do is they want to get you locked into a story right away. So once you get locked to that first story you said the first time, you can never get out of it. It's like fucking, drowning.
Remember, the 4th of July this year was on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So everyone celebrated on Saturday.
Saturday.
So they started thinking, well, how the hell did this message get sent? So they searched the Halderson home where Chandler was. And in the garage, under a shelf, in a shoe, wrapped in aluminum foil, was his mother's phone, along with her driver's license.
What a piece of shit. Really?
Police would later subpoena the records from U.S. Cellular, the cell phone carrier, covers Chandler and the family. And they would look into what cell towers were being used when that message was sent. If you didn't know, all of you probably have cell phones. At any time, your phone is pinging off of different cell towers. It's not always the same. As you sit here, half of you might be using one tower and half of you might be using another. It's based on the workload of those towers. You'll hear about that. But it's generally an approximate area of where you are. That message on July 4th, Krista there's in pink.
You mean the mic was not working? No way.
Chandler's in green. The message was sent from the Halderson home on July 4th. Chandler sent it to himself.
Oh, shit.
So at this point, the investigators began to wonder, and perhaps you're beginning to wonder how the evidence will come out. How does this happen? How does this kid, with everything in the world going for him, promising new jobs, school, a girlfriend that loves him, willing to move across the country for him, or even physically, a kid who just suffered this major concussion, was unable to use his legs for the most part. How does this happen?
Made it up.
And what you'll learn, it happens because none of these things are true.
Yep.
He wasn't going to Madison College.
Nope.
He wasn't studying renewable resource engineering.
Nope.
The people at American Family Insurance,
Nope.
they'd never even heard of him.
Yep.
There's no indication he had ever even applied for a job, much less had any job at SpaceX.
Right.
The apartment he told his girlfriend he'd rented and the car he'd bought, none of that was real. The Madison police, they don't even have a scuba diving team. Neither does the DNR. And this concussion he apparently suffered, he did go to the hospital. You'll hear from the doctor who was there. He said, yeah, he came in, he reported that he hit his head, falling down the stairs. I diagnosed him with a concussion. Gave him a neck brace on the way out, told him he could use it if he needed it.
The murder of his parents.
But none of the things that Chandler reported to other people, the leg weakness, his inability to move, drive, travel, none of that was real. And given what you're going to find out in this case, you may conclude at the end of it, he never suffered any fall at all. What you may conclude is that it was all made up. Now, police started looking into all of these lies. Because how does a person who looks so promising, was able to convince so many people of his success, how are you able to keep this up?
I didn't exist.
How are you able to catfish your family, your girlfriend, your brother, your friends? And they started to find things around the Halderson home, in the email accounts of Bart and Krista Halderson, in the email accounts of Chandler Halderson. When they talk about American Family Insurance, the first big lie Chandler was making up, again, the people at American Family Insurance, you'll hear them testify, they're directors of human resources. He never worked there, never worked for any of their affiliates, never worked for any of the companies that are associated with them. Chandler had been claiming to work there for a year, but he never had any money. And his father was an accountant, so his father would ask him questions pretty much daily. Why don't you have any money? Why haven't you paid any rent? And Chandler spun an amazing web of lies. First it was, well, I'm a salary guy, but they were accidentally paying me hourly, so they just held my paychecks until they fixed it. Then it was, well, I gave him the wrong direct deposit info. Then it kind of shifted eventually. And he said, well, they were going to pay me, but now the amount is so much, they got to pay me so much money that when they deposited in the bank, they thought it was fake. And police started to find emails like this. This from Tom Selznick, a guy at American Family Insurance, a Northeast remote human resources guy, describing this. You're registered as salary, but you're making hourly. And these emails would go back and forth with Chandler and the HR person, and eventually he'd forward them to his father. But in the way a parent looks at their child as maybe telling the truth is not the way that you as jurors have to look at this. You, like the police, maybe have to take a more critical look at emails like this. And for one, notice, why is the guy who works at Human Resources at American Family Insurance using a Proton Mail generic email address? Why is the guy who's the Human Resources manager spelling the word resources wrong, saying he's the Human Recourses manager? It's comically fake. He emailed himself back and forth, trying to explain why he didn't have any money, and he forwards it to his dad. Now here's where the story gets maybe a little more complex. Having a fake job solves a lot of riddles in your life. No one's hassling you to get a new job. No one's hassling you to do chores all day. The problem is, if your dad works from home, if he was an accountant, for instance, which he was, and which he did, you actually have to wake up early every day and go to work. So there he was. Messages between Bart and Chandler. Hey, are you up for your meetings? Yeah. Over and over again. So Chandler woke up. But he had nothing to do all day because his job was pretend. And so he sat on his computer playing video games. And I'm not against people playing video games. I'm a guy myself. People play video games. But video games, if you don't know, and some of you are of an age where you do, and some of you are an age where you don't, are a much more social thing than they used to be. When you play video games, you don't just sit on Nintendo 64 and play Mario by yourself. You're playing role-player games with people from around the world. And who's up early in the morning when Mr. Halderson had to wake up to attend his fake work meetings?
Yeah, cold, man.
People in the military who are stationed overseas. They speak English, they're American, but they're on a different time schedule. They're on his time schedule. Most people here probably play video games at night during weekdays. But every day, Mr. Halderson was able to wake up and find a group of friends to play video games with online, one of which was stationed in Germany. This friend was a guy named Andrew Smith. Now, Mr. Smith, Mr. Halderson became kind of best friends. They would talk all the time. They communicated in this video game all the time. And Mr. Smith, he'll testify, he's coming up here, lives down south, he's back in the US. He'll tell you that Chandler really liked an SKS rifle when they'd play some of these shooting games. It was just something he liked. Not a big deal, there's nothing wrong with that. But this past summer, about a month before the murders of Bart and Krista Halderson, this online friend, Andrew Smith, comes to visit Mr. Halderson and in fact stays at the home with Bart and Krista. This is a picture of Mr. Smith in that perhaps crudely designed yellow shirt. That's Mr. Halderson. It's the only photo we have of them on that visit.
What a name, fucking sunshine.
You'll learn that Mr. Smith had gotten out of the military. He was done with it. But you'll also learn that he really likes guns. Like he really likes guns.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And he knew his friend liked SKS rifles. So when he visited him this year in June, he brought with him a gift. The SKS rifle that was found about 100 yards from Bart Halderson's body. Now, you'll meet Mr. Smith and you'll probably concur with me after meeting him. He's not really probably a paperwork kind of guy. And so when he gave the gun to Mr. Halderson, he wanted to document that he transferred the gun, but he wasn't going to fill out any paperwork. So he just took the serial number of the gun, he put Mr. Halderson's driver's license next to it, and snapped a picture on his phone. There's a clear picture of that. But that serial number matches the gun.
So that gives you an idea how smart people are with guns. So he could not put a bill of sale, so he took a picture of his driver's license next to the serial number of the shotgun, just for future issues, and it did work. So that's what it is. So if you
Found in the barn, 100 yards from Bart Halderson's body. And before Mr. Smith left, he decided he would gift his friend something else, which was about 400 rounds of high-powered ammunition.
big mistake. Couldn't be that easy.
Now, you'll hear from Mr. Smith.
Okay.
Despite maybe his bizarre actions and maybe his bizarre statements he may make, he's not a suspect. Police proved he was in Texas at the time all of this happened. Another unknowing accomplice to Mr. Halderson's crimes. So at this point, Mr. Halderson's working a pretend job at American Family Insurance. He's not getting paid. His father, who's an accountant, is kind of on his case about it. He's got to figure out something else. And the best way out of your pretend job is an even more pretend job. So around May, going into June of this past year, American Family wasn't going well, so Mr. Halderson decided to get a new job. He's going to be an astronaut. I work at SpaceX. This is messages to his girlfriend. I have a good feeling about SpaceX. I have a follow-up interview for Florida tomorrow. Shoot, sorry, I got the job. I have training next week over the computer and leave June 11th and start June 14th.
Oh. Let me speed this shit up.
He didn't give himself a lot of time, but what he gave himself was an escape hatch. He could move. He could end the lies that he had going on in his life about being a rescue scuba diver and working for American Family Insurance by simply moving to Florida. That presented with it one major problem, which was that job, which was also make-believe, would pay absolutely no better than the last job that was make-believe. So in late June, as he's supposed to start the job at SpaceX in Florida for Elon Musk, something happens in the Halderson family, something real. There's a change. Remember when I started off and I said there were two sons? His older brother gets hospitalized. That's real, it happened. Got diagnosed with diabetes and was having some complications. He's doing great now. Mr. Halderson uses that as an excuse to delay starting at SpaceX. It was a stroke of good luck for him, a stroke of bad luck, of course, for the family, but a stroke of good luck for him. But that only gave him a couple of weeks. So his brother, who's doing really well in life, engaged, house, real job, making a lot of money, suddenly he's in the hospital, being doted over by his family, by his mother. People care about him. So roughly a week later, when Chandler Halderson needs to think of a new lie to get out of the SpaceX lie, guess who ends up in the hospital, being doted over by his mother and his family with a supposed neck injury. This is Father's Day of this year, in late June. That's Bart Halderson in the middle, Mitchell on the right. Of course, Chandler wearing a neck brace that no one told him he had to wear on the left. Now, around this time, Chandler started telling people an extraordinarily bizarre set of claims. That he had a brain bleed, a hematoma, that he had spinal damage, that he needed his head drilled open, that he had inability to use his legs at all.
Well, actually, he did.
Couldn't drive. People had to do that for him.
He needed his fucking head drilled for the shit he's doing. What a fucking phony piece of shit.
That he had nerve damage, that he needed to get a colostomy bag. But most importantly,
everything in the book. How about a dick
he
up his
couldn't go to
ass?
Florida. The doctors had told him he couldn't fly. Of course, that's not true. You'll see his medical records and you'll see his doctor testify. So suddenly this man, who
You see that list? Oh, sorry.
was, for all intents and purposes, disabled, was being doted over by his family. People were making him meals. You'll see notes his mom was leaving for him. Call this neighbor if you need anything. She'll help you out. Couldn't drive, couldn't work, couldn't do chores. Now, a bit of a preview and a fast forward. This guy who's wearing a neck brace nearly every day in late June 2021 would have no problem just days later carrying large bags of ice out of gas stations to chill his father's cut-up body in a freezer. And you'll note, no neck brace. And in fact, you'll note in this case, Chandler Halderson is never seen in that neck brace again after July 1st, 2021, when he kills his parents. So the job lies are over for Chandler in his life. American Family Insurance, don't worry about that because he got this new job at SpaceX. In SpaceX, I can't go because I'm hurt. It was a perfect scenario. But there was one last lie that Chandler had to get out of. And that is he had told everyone he was going to MATC for college and that he was about to graduate. And you'll hear there's a hint of truth to that he was going there at one point. In fact, there's a hint of truth to all of these lies. He did go to MATC for like a semester. He failed out. But he wasn't going there anymore. And the parents were starting to grow suspicious. And we knew this because when we searched the house, we started to find notes on Bart Halderson's desk. Bart Halderson was one of these guys who prints his emails. I don't know if any of you print your emails, but some people, they get an email and they print it out. That was Bart. And we find one. It's an email between Bart and Krista, detailing a conversation that he had had with Chandler's advisors at MATC. He was supposed to meet with someone else, so we met with this guy, Daniel Spieth. Chandler's going to get a solar certificate. He wasn't. He's registered for fall classes. He wasn't. He's in the IT program. He wasn't. All of these things, line by line, none of them true. But Bart Halderson talked to this person. So police honed in on something. That line. When I talked to the advisor, he sounds just like Chaz on the phone. And he gives this number. That is, of course, because Bart Halderson, when he talked to Chandler's college advisor, was just talking to Chandler, who had bought a burner phone, cheap phone from like Walgreens that you can buy with no service carrier.
A scumbag.
And police know that because they searched Chandler's bedroom. And in his desk drawer, they found that phone. Now, this kept going. The lie about going to MATC or Madison College was the most extensive. There were emails, dozens, if not hundreds of emails going back and forth between supposed advisors at MATC and Chandler, and then he'd forward them to his dad from people like someone named Alyssa Brandt, 64. Sometimes Chandler would spell Brandt, B-R-A-N-D-T, sometimes just with a T and no D, depended on the day. But they all had the @Gmail address, not @madisoncollege.edu. And you'll hear from the people at Madison College, their people have real emails, they don't use Gmail. But it was over and over again. Alyssa Brandt was one of them. You heard about Daniel Spieth, also @Gmail. There was someone named Aaron Hoover, also @Gmail. In this one, Chandler's getting upset. I have to have a call with whomever's in charge within the next 30 minutes. I have been a student for over 3 years and I will be treated fairly. Of course, he's yelling at himself. All of these were fake. Back and forth to himself and eventually to his dad.
Motherfucker. What a sick
The Halderson
motherfucker.
parents had to have been growing extraordinarily frustrated.
Everything is a lie, you
Kid
piece
wasn't
of
getting
shit.
paid. He was injured suddenly. His college transcripts aren't coming through, so he can't get a job. So police looked at that original note again. And they saw something interesting. which is in this sea of fake people, Daniel Spieth, Aaron Hoover, Tom Selznick, Alyssa Brandt, there was one name that stood out, Omar Jobe. And that name didn't stand out because it was fake. It stood out to the police because it was real. That is the only real person on any of these emails. And what we've discovered in this investigation is in just the day and a half prior to being murdered, Bart Halderson, Chandler's dad, called MATC and pretended to be Chandler to try to finally get some information on what's going on. Just as any of you could call any doctor and pretend to be your kid, you know their name, their social security number, their birthday, you can get through. You can get through those minor security things. Bart called MATC, said, I'm Chandler, and I want some answers. And for 17 minutes, Bart Halderson, just before his murder, talked to a man named Omar Jobe. Omar Jobe is a entry-level customer service guy at MATC. He's got no skin in the game, doesn't even really remember the call, but it was recorded for customer service purposes. And Bart Halderson questions Omar, and he's very mean at first, because in his mind, he'd been getting screwed around for a year on where his son's transcripts were and what degree program he was in and why he hasn't graduated yet. But toward the end of the call, Bart asked Omar Jobe, hey, do any of these people work there? Alyssa Brandt, Daniel Spieth, Aaron Hoover. And he's told no, they've never worked there. And in fact, they haven't. And he says, that'll be it then. That'll be it then, are the last recorded words of Bart Halderson alive. Bart Halderson, shortly after that, sends a text message. A text message that ultimately sealed his fate, which was a text to his own son. And it says, I spoke with Omar Jobe. Now, what happens over the next 24 or so hours is a bit unknown. Homicide investigations are a lot of unknowns because the two people who are the victims, who maybe know the most about what happened, are of course dead. But there's not much verifiable information that happens over the next 24 hours. It's also unknown if Chandler even knew who Omar Jobe was. Of course, he wasn't going to MATC, so why would he know who some lowly entry-level customer service guy was? He wouldn't. But Bart Halderson did. And when you look at Bart Halderson's work calendar that he maintains at his accounting firm, you see something quite interesting. Remember at the beginning, I said I wanted you to remember a date, a time, which was that the Haldersons were killed between 3 and 5 p.m. on July 1st, 2021. Guess what was on Bart's calendar at that exact time? He was supposed to have a meeting with the people at MATC with his son. So he was supposed to go to MATC and have this meeting at 3 o'clock on July 1st, 2021. Of course, that meeting couldn't happen because he wasn't going there, and none of the people were real, but Bart Halderson knew that. Bart Halderson knew that. And so Chandler had obviously figured that out at this point. There's no way out of this one. You can't get out of this lie. And so the next day, Chandler Halderson wakes up on July 1st and starts messaging his girlfriend. 7:26, I hardly slept. 7:27, stuff hasn't been going well for me lately. Just trying to plan for the next thing to fuck me over. 7:51, I had a great future planned. It's falling apart.
Future.
1:04, just 2 hours prior to the murders. I overheard they might go to the cabin with their friends, but I don't know. So somewhat of a full circle at this point. That's the moment Chandler Halderson decides to kill his parents and engage in this bizarre story of them missing at a cabin with an unknown couple in an unknown car at 1:04, July 1st. Now, shortly after this message, it's about an hour and 10 minutes, Bart Halderson's getting ready to go to MATC for this meeting. Perhaps to confront Chandler, perhaps Chandler's going to confront him. Bart texts Chandler, I'm ready whenever you are. That's about 50 minutes prior to when he was killed. Those are the last words ever recorded of Bart Halderson. His phone is never used, really. Again, he dies at some point. He never goes back to work. No one ever sees him. The neighborhood he lives in, riddled with security cameras, never see him again. I'm ready whenever you are. What the evidence will show in this case is that sometime after the I'm ready whenever you are message, and probably just around 3 o'clock when he was supposed to go to this meeting with MATC, Bart Halderson was shot in the back multiple times with a high-powered rifle. And after shooting his dad, Chandler texts his mom. Dad's phone died. Text or call me. And get sewed on your way home. I have an extra hour of work. You know he didn't have an extra hour of work, but he was delaying her getting there because the evidence will show he needed to move things around, prepare for what he was about to do when she showed up. She responds, "Okay, I can," smiley face. Those are the last words of Krista Halderson alive.
What a shame.
Shortly thereafter, around just after 5, neighborhood security cameras, the Haldersons didn't have one, but the neighborhood, a lot of people did.
He told her he wanted soda so she'll be a little later because he's not finished with her husband or with his father yet. What a piece of shit.
Krista pulling in, getting out of the car, walking in, she's never seen again until her legs are found out by the Wisconsin River. But just after killing his mom and his dad, the evidence in this case will show that Chandler went on his phone. If you go on your phone, I don't know if any of you have ever taken a note. You can take notes on your phone. iPhone has an app called Notes. We got some raw data, and I'll put it up here in a second. I won't put the raw data because it's a bit challenging to see. But Chandler creates a note about 5:11 that day on July 1st, probably minutes after killing his parents. And the note reads,
With a note.
"Weekend chores, H2O2 lemon." H2O2 is the chemical name for hydrogen peroxide. You'll hear from people in this case, it's essentially a household cleaner to clean up blood. Lemon, it deodorizes things. Mixed together, it's a pretty cheap cleaning product you can have at home. So Chandler writes a note after murdering his parents, "H2O2 lemon. Door handles, move your shit upstairs, get a job,
At a job.
and clean the floor."
If you had a job, nobody would be dead, you piece of
He
shit.
then does just that. Spends the afternoon cleaning the house, eventually jumps in the shower. We know he's in the shower because his girlfriend and him FaceTime when they're in the shower. No judgment, but that's what happened, and the girlfriend took a screenshot. We know he's in the shower. They say they're good nights, and Chandler says, "I'm going to bed." But he doesn't. He goes to gas stations. He's carrying out large bags of ice. Because what Chandler had done that night is what you all probably suspect by now.
Yeah.
He had dismembered his parents, or at least started the process, and had to fit them inside of freezers that were in the Halderson
What a
home. You'll see some of these
sick
freezers.
piece of
They're cleaned.
shit.
There's still some evidence around.
With the mask.
That night, I'm not going to show many photographs for a little bit, just because I think you deserve to kind of be eased into some of the things you're going to see. That night, what appears to have happened, what the evidence will show, is Mr. Halderson took items from around the house and began cutting apart his parents. Saw blades covered in Bart and Krista's blood. An axe, Bart and Krista's blood. Hand saws, things of that sort, covered in Bart and Krista's blood. He cleaned the house as best he could, and you'll hear about that. But still, blood spatter found of Bart and Krista's blood around the house. And he had a plan. It wasn't a well-thought-out plan, but he had one. And that was he was going to burn the remains in the family fireplace there in the house. So it's July 1st, and if any of you remember, 4th of July weekend's pretty hot this year. People in the neighborhood thought it was a little bit weird that someone's fireplace was going on. They smelled stuff.
Barbecue.
One person, this neighborhood's full of retired cops, but one retired cop said, "I smelled like a barbecue, smelled like a pig roast." And he said that just not knowing what it was at the time, talking to the police. And that night, a neighbor who had a security camera behind the Halderson home, way far away, was able to catch something. Because it was pitch black at night, he was able to catch just a little glimpse of all the windows in the Halderson house. We have an expert that's going to come in who works with video and light analysis. And he's going to tell you, he was able to figure out which window that was. And the window it was that he was looking at in that camera footage that kind of just piqued his attention was the window by the fireplace. And for many hours over the course of that night, the light flickered, came on, died down, on. But in the early morning hours of the next day, he'd been up all night doing this. Because you'll learn, you really can't burn human remains. Your home fireplace is not going to get hot enough to do that. It takes an extraordinary amount of heat. If you go to like a crematorium, you're inducing it with oxygen, chemicals, not a residential fireplace. But eventually, in the middle of the night, the fire started going well. It appeared that air was being pumped into it, and you'll see when they searched the Halderson home, there was in fact a fan found right next to the fireplace, next to a tape measure, trying to make sure the remains were the right size as they went into the fireplace. But that light at one point grew and grew and grew, and it got very bright in one room.
He was measuring the body parts so they could fit the fucking furnace of the house. This motherfucker is sick, man.
Then all of a sudden, the kitchen light came on, and then all the lights went out. I don't know if anyone's ever taken a hot Pyrex pan out of the stove and put water in it, or dumped hot water on your windshield in your car in the winter. But it explodes the glass.
Oh.
The evidence in this case will show that what happened was the fire had gotten out of control, burning these human remains. Human fat was rendering out. It was igniting. So Chandler threw water on it. But when you throw water on your residential fireplace, you break the glass. And that's exactly what happened.
The scumbag.
Just above that broken glass panel, which is clearly shattered, you see the paint kind of bubbled off from the heat. This is in the search of the home some week later. The fireplace is clearly used. The police noticed something interesting about this photograph, which is, despite being clearly used, the logs are rebuilt. Someone had cleaned out all the ashes and rebuilt it. Clean logs, newspaper, one burnt piece in the middle. But what stuck out to police right away was that little rock right there. They thought, what is that? You'll hear from the people who collected this evidence. You'll hear from an arson specialist from the Department of Justice, a guy named Bill Boswell, who will come in. You'll hear from a forensic anthropologist, a doctor named Cristina Figueroa Soto, who will tell you, we were all interested in what that was because it was out of place. So they pulled it off and they put it on one of these fancy police deals. And the forensic anthropologist took one look at it. And she said, oh, this is a human skull. He had burned his parents' heads in that fireplace.
He burned him.
Later, the police would
bring him over
go through the ash
his
trap
ass,
of that
man.
fireplace, and they would find human remains.
What a sick
Facial bones, the knee bones, which, because we found Krista's legs, by deduction, had to be Bart. All in the ash trap of that fireplace. They were all cataloged. Now, burnt remains can't be tested for DNA. There's no biological material left. But they're able to tell it's human based on the structure of the bone. And you'll hear from the anthropologist who will talk about that. So that's what happened on July 1st. Now, you're going to hear about all of those days in between Bart and Krista dying at 3 o'clock on the 1st, all the way through the police report. But to summarize, Chandler stayed up all night that night of the 1st. Obviously, things weren't going well, burning his parents' remains, so the next day, perhaps not having slept, he walked into Fleet Farm at 7:21 a.m. to buy a tarp. He's on video. He knew his girlfriend was spending the night that night, so he spent the whole day cleaning, but he's sending her text messages, which you will see throughout the day, asking her to bring him hydrogen peroxide and a mop, because he still needed to clean up. The next day, Saturday, July 3rd, 2021, his girlfriend leaves early in the morning. That's the day she snaps that picture of him out by the Wisconsin River dumping off his mom's remains. He spends the rest of the day hanging out. But when he goes home and says he's going to bed that night, this young man who supposedly couldn't drive or carry heavy objects, his phone records show that he's up near the Wisconsin River in Portage, as if you're driving the interstate up to the Dells, right when you cross the Wisconsin River, off in the state land there to the right. For about an hour, in the middle of the night, the police tried to search that area. It was impossible with the currents. Whatever remains were thrown in there and lost forever. July 4th, 2021, this is the day he texts himself. Spends the day with his girlfriend's family, goes to their farm to use the pool. That's the day he says, hey, can I come back tomorrow? Goes to some fireworks. He's living a normal life. No mention of his parents. The next day, takes out the garbage in the morning. Who knows what was in that garbage can? We've thoroughly searched the landfills, but it's impossible to find anything. But he took out the garbage. He goes out to the farm to supposedly use the pool where he's seen walking out of the woods. Cell phone tower records prove that he was out there on the farm. Remember I told you he told that person that he was having trouble at work and school and having a bad doctor's appointment. He never went to any doctor's appointment that day. Phone records show he never talked to any doctor. It was all a ruse to be able to go out in the woods and hide his father's body. All right. The next day, not much happens because Chandler was up all night. Again, that light analysis shows all night, the garage light on and off. The garage, of course, being where we found some of these tools, the axe covered in blood. He's cleaning up. At 4:30 in the morning, for no apparent reason, he drives around the city of Madison. There's no idea what he did there. But he's not doing much. But people begin questioning him about his parents. He just says they're late. The person most worried, perhaps, is his girlfriend. She thought that was unlike them. The next day, he drives back to the farm, throws a bag of bloody rags into their garbage can that's out by the street. And at 11:22, he texts his girlfriend that he's finally going to the police. We know that bag of rags came from his house because they were in the Target bag his girlfriend picked up from Target. And she did the curbside pickup. So her name was printed on the outside. It was when she brought him hydrogen peroxide. He filled the bag with bloody rags and left it at the house. Oh, fuck. The next day, he starts Googling body found, Wisconsin dismembered body found. He's walking door to door asking about security cameras in his neighborhood. And at 4 p.m., they take him downtown and they arrest him at 641.
Dead.
So that's the story.
Tomorrow,
That's
we will have the police interview. I'm not feeling good. I want to do both today, but I don't know. I think I'm coming down with something. I hope it's not COVID-19 or that shit.